What's something that is romantic in movies, but creepy in real life? Someone coming home and finding their entire apartment full of flowers when the sender obviously had no legal way to get in. Casually stalking who they're pursuing, especially if they're a police officer or FBI agent and they just casually look up their interest in the database. Those elaborate plots that trick the other person into falling for you. How do you even trick a person to fall for you? If they're not into you, that's never going to work. Yet in movies it always does. And the trick part implies it's lying to or forcing the other person. How is that in any way a healthy base for a relationship of any kind? This isn't a movie, but I always think of the Tumblr post where you give someone their favorite candy every time you see them and then they're Pavlov's dog into liking you. So you basically just Stardew Valley them. Stopping someone's wedding and asking them to be with you. Really? You couldn't shoot your shot before the wedding? It's not a surprise event. You're really going to embarrass everyone involved and destroy their wedding day when you could have just showed up last Wednesday? Or ditching your wedding at the last minute for some woman you only met once. Looking at you. Serendipity. There was a Ben Affleck Sandra Bullock movie in the 90s that I loved, because Affleck is trying to get to his wedding and, due to a comedy of errors, falls in with Sandra Bullock on a crazy cross-country trip full of shenanigans. Of course, he gets there and goes in to tell his wife that the wedding is off and he's in love with Bullock. But then, he sees her, remembers why he loves her, and goes through with the wedding. At the time, I thought it was a bullshit ending. In retrospect, I love it, because it makes so much more sense, and it totally subverts the Hollywood trope. Stopping weddings. I attended a wedding in a city hall. The mayor said he's never heard someone say no, but he has already seen people who tried to stop weddings. She got ejected quickly, but it never affected the ceremony. I can't imagine that it didn't affect it whatsoever. Sure, they probably proceeded like normal, but surely the mood was off. Possible the family or other parties see the offender before the bride, groom. E.g., seeing an ex-boyfriend walking up to the venue. You'd probably ask them what's up. Depending on the moment, I feel like if you feel strongly against the marriage you have until the day of it to make your case. Anybody who does it during the ceremony is just an a-hole. If you feel strongly against the marriage, you let it be known as soon as possible. A lot of money gets spent on a wedding that is non-refundable. And for that reason alone, I suspect efforts to stop a marriage are going to fail. If you can't convince someone not to get married when there's nothing invested, imagine how much harder it would to change their mind when they'd be out $10,000 and have to embarrassingly tell everyone they've invited that the wedding is off. I had a friend getting married that we all knew was a mistake. When they started planning their wedding, a couple friends and family basically had an intervention for him and tried to talk him out of it. He went ahead with it anyway, and less than a year later they were divorced. An overdramatic proposal in front of a bunch of strangers. There was a scene in Love, Simon where one of Simon's best friends is subject to a public proposal in front of the entire school, and she then has to suffer the horror of publicly turning him down, because she doesn't like him in that way. I sunk down in my chair in the cinema and had to look away. Super cringe, but at least they actually showed how that would play out realistically. I had a guy ask me out in front of a third of the school before one of the 3 lunch blocks, with a huge sign that took multiple people to hold. I cried, which he mistook as happy tears and assumed we were dating now. I had to super awkwardly let him down once we were alone. When couples are fake dating and trying to convince their family, then the family forces them to kiss in front of everyone to prove their love. No family would ever do this in real life. It's freaking weird. Like, please, make out in front of Nana and your Uncle Ken. Oh buddy. Where I grew up, Hispanic culture, if a boy and girl had any reason, simmering someone would chant, Bessie Bezo Bezo until everyone joined in. Bezo Bezo Bezo. Literally everything in the 50 Shades movies. AKA every misconception possible about BDSM, but dressed up for horny middle-aged housewives. If 50 Shades was set on a trailer park, it would be an episode of Criminal Minds. 50 Shades is to BDSM as Game of Thrones is to wedding planning. Extremely old vampires dating 16-year-olds. What We Do in the Shadows, the movie, has a great spin on this one. He's dating a much younger woman. She's in her 80s. Imagine being so creepy and low life that after 100 years of lifetime and having superpowers, you still go to a local high school every day to stalk teenage girls. I never understood why he still went to high school when he clearly despised it. Even though it says he was turned at, looks 17. Couldn't they just say he was 18 and recently graduated? Seems like a dumb reason to repeat high school 20 times. As much as I hate giving credence to Twilight, they actually explain this. Their reasoning is that since every time they have to start over it's a bunch of work, everyone restarts their new life as young as possible. So the kids are all enrolled in high school so they can squeeze 2 or 3 more years out of their new lives before they have to relocate and start all over again. But they could have just said they're being homeschooled. Not taking no for an answer. I hate when some dude in a movie keeps chasing after the girl to convince her that they're meant to be together. Bonus hate points if he ruins a wedding or something to do it. I also hate when women in movies conspire to manipulate a man into falling in love. It's not cute. Yay. I hate it when in TV shows the son will have issues with asking out a girl, so he goes to the dad and the dad says something like don't take no for an answer. I had to ask your mother out X amount of times till she finally gave me a chance. I know that sounds hella specific, but I swear I've heard it in 1,000 different shows. You definitely have, specific, as it is. It's such a weird trope. These days we call them stalkers, not continuing the illusion that it's some grand and sweet gesture to follow her around harassing her to frick you until she gives up, like a predator wearing down prey in the long hunt. Therapists dating or having X with their patients. Oh, but they have such a deep connection. No, that's a malpractice lawsuit in the making. All I can think of is Lucifer, but this isn't the only creepy thing in that show. Robin dating her therapist in Him. That was short-lived and unnecessary. I think they stopped therapy for that to work. Would this still be allowed in real life? In Australia there's a waiting period of several years before psychologists can date former patients and psychiatrists never can. I imagine the US is similar, though I can't say for sure. Bumping into the same person over and over again. Okay, this is starting to get weird. First you show up at my house, and now you're showing up at my work? This has to stop. But we're roommates, and you're my boss. I don't want to hear it. This has to stop. Bumping into each other and throwing all papers around. I would be freaking annoyed. God damn it, Randy. What is this? The 5th time this week. What's your excuse this time? Need to get new contacts again? Lost your balance? Tripped over the non-existent stress relief ball? Stapler. Randy did not get laid that night. Again. Stealing their baby brother and taking them to the castle at the center of the labyrinth to eventually turn them into a goblin. I think that movie is pretty good at showing what a toxic relationship can look like. You can be fascinated and afraid of someone at the same time. I ask for so little. Just fear me, love me, do as I say and I will be your slave. I love this line. Also, random fun fact, Bowie made all the baby noises in Dance Magic Dance because the actual baby noises were to shoot. Everything you've wanted, I have done. You asked that the child be taken. I took him. You cowered before me. I was frightening. I have reordered time. I have turned the world upside down, and I done it all for you. I am exhausted from living up to your expectations. It's only creepy if you're not David Bowie. Bowie married his first wife, Mary Angela Barnett, on the 19th of March 1970 at Bromley Register Office in Bromley, London. They had an open marriage. Angela described their union as a marriage of convenience. We got married so that I could get a permit to work. I didn't think it would last, and David said, before we got married, I'm not really in love with you and I thought that's probably a good thing, she said. Bowie said about Angela that living with her is like living with a blowtorch. Bowie's own relationships are nothing short of fascinating and movie-like. I'm really not sure what he means by living with a blowtorch. Technically I live with a blowtorch, It doesn't do anything until I get it out, attach some gas and turn it on. Maybe that's what he means. Obsessive and unrequited love, sometimes spanning years, that ultimately succeeds because the less interested party gets worn down and realizes they're a big dummy and they love them after all. It's super weird, but apparently it does happen. My girlfriend was in a wedding for 2 people like this. The guy was obsessed with the girl in high school, but she never gave him the time of day. They stayed friends in college. She started developing feelings for him that sort of cascaded into her obsessing over him, but he had been friend-zoned so long that he didn't notice any of the hints. Now they are married and still completely obsessed with each other. Pitch it to the major networks. Didn't you know that's half the movies already on the Hallmark Channel or Lifetime? Lifetime Christmas movie. Woman magically finds the love of her life just before Christmas. Lifetime the rest of the year movie. Woman narrowly avoids being brutally raped and murdered just before the end of the movie. Severus Snape has joined the chat.